Hey y'all, I'm Hope. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my vlog for System Collapse. This is the 7th book, I think, in the Murderbot series, and I'm super excited I got an arc for this. I was like over the moon. I literally sent like an all caps message to my friends the moment I got the email. I was like, oh my god guys, I got an arc for System Collapse. And then school happened and I haven't had time to read it yet. So it comes out a week from yesterday, so I am not reading it. And I thought it would be fun to vlog this because I did also vlog the rest of the series. I think back in 2021, I will link that video somewhere in here. But I vlogged the first 6 books in 2021 for a project I was doing, reading Goodreads Choice nominees. And I think that year, the 6th book in the series had been nominated, so I was reading all 6 of them. And that was the beginning of a wonderful experience because I love Murderbot so much, and I had so much fun reading all of those. I'm super excited to be reading System Collapse. So I did start this yesterday, and I'm about 30% in. I meant to actually start this vlog earlier, but then I got too excited and I started the book instead. But I'm about 30% in, and like so far it is just more of the same Murderbot goodness that the rest of the series has been. But I am interested in some of the things that Martha Wells is doing here, because this is the first Murderbot book we have that's like a direct sequel to an earlier book. Like, I know that the first 4 books form like their own kind of coherent arc and they're like sequential, but this book, System Collapse, is a direct sequel within, it seems like, a few hours or a few days of the end of Network Effect. So it's immediately carrying on from the fallout of those events in Network Effect. And I really enjoyed Network Effect. I think it's great. It's a very interesting book, especially as like the one full novel up until now that there has been in the series. But Network Effect also does some really interesting horror things that I think are fun and that I wasn't expecting when I first read it. And now I think that so far, 30% in, System Collapse is doing some interesting things dealing with the emotional fallout of those events for Murderbot, and I think that's what I'm really enjoying about this so far. So I can't tell you a lot about the plot of System Collapse, but I can say that it has a much bigger cast so far than any of the previous Murderbot books did, because there's like a group of people that show up at the end of Network Effect and we're dealing with like all of them. So there's a much bigger cast, and there was a new character who is kind of a not quite a comparison and not quite a foil, but like someone who is having a similar-ish experience to Murderbot, but in a kind of different way. And so we're getting to see the ways that they're dealing with their like experiences of identity differently. So that's really fun. And then also there's this intriguing element where Murderbot seems to be dealing with something. It's unclear what precisely Murderbot is trying to avoid, but there is something that Murderbot doesn't want to talk about. So this whole like first section, and so like continuing on so far, it's reading like the whole thing is a report of some kind, and Murderbot has something that it doesn't want to talk about, and so it's redacting portions of the report. So there's lots of like there'll be a sentence and it will say blah 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 redacted in the middle of the sentence, or there'll just be a section that has like a paragraph cuts off and then it's like redacted, and then it'll continue on. And I'm really curious to see how that's going to play out and like what it is that Murderbot is trying to avoid talking about. I'm really curious to see what element of Network Effect has kind of led to that. I'm really enjoying also the way that Murderbot is kind of forming new relationships with some characters, and how its relationships with some of the existing characters are being explored more fully, and kind of the relationships are growing in interesting ways. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. But if you're not familiar with Network Effect, it involves I can't again tell you too much about the plot, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is basically a kind of colony site, or like a lost colony, that Network Effect is about, I guess. And so System Collapse is kind of dealing with the fallout of the interactions that Murderbot and its companions have had with this kind of situation with a lost colony. So really just enjoying this so much. I love being back in the world of Murderbot, and like I said, it feels like Murderbot has come a long way, and we're getting like some very different aspects of its kind of identity formation and its journey as a construct who is now able to do what it wants and go where it wants and interact with who it wants to, and the ways that it is coping or failing to cope with that. And I'm just really enjoying seeing more of Murderbot's like kind of journey of identity and journey of like self-discovery. And I'm also interested in the way that this seems to be drawing in some more possible horror elements. So I'm very excited, and I'm loving it. I'm only 30% in, but I just started it yesterday. So I'm gonna be reading some more of it this evening and hopefully finishing it in the next day or so. But I will try to remember to check in a couple of times if I have any like thoughts. Otherwise, I guess you get a really short vlog, but I'm just so excited to be reading this, and it's possible I might just kind of like forget and plow all the way through the book before I realize that I've done that. Anyway, so far so good. Would highly recommend it at this point, and I'm really enjoying the way that System Collapse is dealing with the kind of plot threads that are left hanging at the end of Network Effect. So I'm gonna go stop talking and go actually read some more, so that like, because I need to know what happens. I really need to know what happens here. I have finished System Collapse. Technically I finished it last night, but I am so excited that this book is going to be out the same day you should be seeing this, because I'm excited for more people to read it and have people to talk to about it. My friend is probably going to read it pretty soon, and like, I'm just so excited. This was so good. Obviously I'm already a huge fan of Murderbot, so I was already going to like it, but I really like the way that this installment has a slightly different tone to the earlier Murderbot books. It has some kind of different focuses. So I can't say anything about the plot really without spoiling Network Effects. I'm going to try not to do that. But this particular installment has an expanded cast. It has a bunch of older characters from like the first 4 and 5 books. And then there are some new characters who show up at the end of Network Effect who are added to the cast. And so there's this whole new like group dynamic. There's new people from Murderbot to get to know and to interact with, and these kind of new relationship dynamics between Murderbot and these other characters, and between some of the older characters and the new characters. And so there's just like a lot going on there with like the team dynamics, and I really like the way that Murderbot is getting to grips with all of these new people that it is suddenly having to interact with and deal with their like other expanding relationships in this kind of web of people. So that's really interesting. I also really like the way that the story of this one ties in with Murderbot's kind of own exploration of identity and kind of deciding what it wants to do. Those are really big themes for this book, and I think that it's interesting the way that this one kind of ties those into the larger story in a way that the earlier ones hadn't. So Murderbot's still dealing with those things, but now there's this kind of bigger thing that's at stake for those questions, which I thought was really fun. And then the other thing that I want to mention that I think is fantastic is that this book deals very, very directly with Murderbot's anxiety and trauma, in that the Murderbot itself has to deal with them directly in a way that it hasn't had to in earlier books. It's always kind of like danced around those ideas, and it just been kind of unwilling to deal with its emotions head on because it's uncomfortable that it's like feeling those emotions. I have cat hair on my camera, bear with me. So this one makes those like the front and center focus, and there's this really interesting point through at least a good chunk of the book where Murderbot is kind of actively trying not to tell the reader about a specific thing that has happened that it doesn't want to deal with, that is clearly tied with the end of Network Effect. And so there's these various points throughout the first part of the book where you're getting these like messages that are like, sorry, cat hair again, that are like, you know, redacted in the middle of a sentence. So it'd be like, Murderbot will be talking and then say because of redacted, or then there'll be like a section that just says redacted in the middle. And so there's these whole sections where Murderbot is trying not to tell the reader. And then when you find out what that is, it makes a lot of other things make sense in a really interesting way. And then it becomes like very important to the later part of the story. So I just like the way that this book was basically forcing Murderbot to deal with the more human side of itself, since it's a construct, so it's part bot, part human, and kind of dealing with its human side and its human needs in a different way. I thought that was just really fantastic. It was a really interesting discussion of trauma and how it manifests for different people, and there was also, again, that kind of bigger tie-in with the story that was happening. These elements were also like really important to Murderbot and how it dealt with this kind of bigger situation. So I'm just so excited for people to read this one. I think it's fantastic, and I know that like the end of it, we get this like little line at the end that basically points to there's going to be further Murderbot adventures. And I know that I think it was 2 books that Martha Wells already has contracted with Tor to continue the series, because I think there were 3 total and System Collapse was the first of them. So I'm just so excited because I love Murderbot. I like the prospect of more Murderbot, but also I think this is just a really great arc for Murderbot. I think that it's a little personal journey, goes in really interesting directions here, and that the way that those tie in with this bigger story on this planet that it's on is just really well done. So I'm so excited for people to read this one, and I'm thrilled that I got an arc. The way I like squealed when I got the email that said I had been approved for it was just so silly, and I was messaging my friends all caps like, oh my god, I got an arc of System Collapse. So I'm so excited that I've read it now, and I'm really looking forward to when my friends are able to buy it, which should be the day you're seeing this. You should be seeing this on the 14th, and when there's gonna be like more people who've read it and people to talk to about it, because I just think it's so good, and I'm just thrilled. It was great time, hands down one of my favorite books I've read in the last like 2 months. So yeah, very good time, and I am thrilled that it's almost here. So that being said, that's pretty much all I have for you today, because this turned out to be much shorter than I thought. I didn't check in as much, so that's it. Hopefully it's short and sweet, fingers crossed. Anyway, that's all I have, and I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you'll consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting every Tuesday and Saturday, and so there is more content coming soon. Sorry, my cat is distracting me. I'm trying to do an outro, and he's being a silly little bean over here. So, anyway, there is more content coming soon, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.